killing a member of his entourage. It happened in Los Angeles, and cameras captured the aftermath.
Imagine any random city block, kids playing, neighbors chatting, the steady rhythm of everyday life. Now, erase that image. Because in South Chicago, there exists a place where that normality is a distant fantasy. A cluster of red brick apartment buildings that has become a magnet for violence, an urban battleground where fame and death are separated by a single bullet. This is the story of O Block, a place that should be a home but has become a black legend, a territory so dangerous that even pizza delivery drivers and ambulances refuse to enter. How did a few streets become the epicenter of America's most famous gang war? Welcome to the Parkway Gardens housing project. Officially, it's just an address, but in the language of the streets, it's O Block, a name born from a murder, a tribute to a fallen teen, Odie Perry. And from that moment, the name was sealed in blood. The first thing that strikes you isn't the architecture, it's the silence. A heavy, tense silence, broken only by the distant echo of a siren or the accelerated engine of a car that doesn't belong here. The glances from the corners are not curious, they are security scans. You are not a visitor, you are a potential threat. The air feels different here. It's thick with a mixture of mistrust, despair, and the constant low-frequency hum of imminent danger. This is the reality of O Block, a place where the American dream didn't just fail, it was executed in broad daylight. But O Block wasn't always a war zone. Its story is a perfect lesson in how political and economic failure designs the map of violence. Built in the 1950s as a middle-class haven for African-American families, Parkway Gardens was a symbol of progress, but the deindustrialization of Chicago's South Side, a political decision that moved jobs and resources elsewhere, left a vacuum. Poverty condensed, opportunities vanished. The buildings, once desirable, were left to decay by absentee landlords in a city that looked the other way. By the 1990s, the void left by the system was filled by the only power structure willing to take control: the gangs. First, the gangster disciples. Then, a schism, a betrayal, a street-level political war that gave birth to their mortal enemies, the Black Disciples. O Block found itself in the heart of this new front line. It wasn't a random accident. It was the logical result of concentrating poverty, abandoning public services, and allowing the law of the strongest to become the only law. The ground was fertilized for a conflict that would last for decades. Today, walking through O Block is like navigating a low-intensity war zone. The drill music scene, born from these very streets, acts as both a chronicle and a fuel for the violence. The diss tracks are not just songs, they are tactical maps, intelligence reports set to a beat, mocking the dead and challenging the living. Rappers like King Von, who grew up here, didn't need to invent stories. They just narrated their reality. And that reality is a cycle of revenge so brutal and precise, it feels orchestrated. Scenes of daily life here are surreal. You can see a group of teenagers huddled around a phone, not watching a video, but studying the movements of a rival on social media. A car with tinted windows slowly turning the corner is not a lost driver. It's a reconnaissance mission. Violence here is not chaotic. It's strategic. It's about controlling the corner, the block, the narrative. The statistics are chilling, but they don't capture the atmosphere. Homicide rates in this district are over 800% higher than the national average, but the numbers are sterile. They don't convey the sound of accelerated footsteps after a backfiring car or the sight of a mother hurriedly pulling her child away from a window. For the residents of O Block, danger is a sixth sense, a constant calculation of risk in every simple act: going to the store, sitting on the porch, looking out the window. And here's the most disturbing question: why does it continue? The uncomfortable answer is that the chaos is, to some extent, functional. The notoriety of O Block has become a perverse brand. YouTube channels monetize the violence, media outlets get clicks from the horror, and the tourism of misery attracts outsiders fascinated by the legend. Meanwhile, the response from the system is a predictable cycle: a high-profile murder, a temporary police surge, political promises, and then silence. The resources are poured in, but the root is never touched. The gangs are a symptom, not the disease. The disease is the total lack of viable alternatives. Some community activists whisper about a containment policy, the idea that the city is satisfied with keeping the violence confined to these known blocks, as long as it doesn't spill into the affluent downtown areas or the tourist spots. It's more efficient to police a designated war zone than to solve the complex problems of poverty, trauma, and lack of education that created it. O-Block is a pressure valve for the city's larger social problems, and as long as the pressure is released there, the rest of Chicago can continue to function. But what happens in O-Block doesn't stay in O-Block. The violence is viral. It spreads through social networks, inspiring conflicts in other cities. The drill music scene has exported Chicago's gang rivalries to London, New York, and Australia. The tactics, the slang, the brutal authenticity are replicated in suburbs thousands of miles away. Furthermore, the economic cost is astronomical. Each homicide costs the city an estimated $1 million in police investigations, judicial processes, and incarceration. Hospitals in the area are overwhelmed with trauma cases, their emergency rooms becoming extensions of the battlefield. The psychological trauma inflicted on an entire generation of children growing up here is incalculable. They are learning that life is cheap and that conflict is the only way to gain respect. This is not just a Chicago problem, it's a blueprint for social collapse that is being studied and sadly replicated. So, O-Block is more than a block. It's a symbol, a stark reminder that when a system abandons its people, it doesn't create a vacuum. It creates a new order. An order ruled by the law of retaliation, where fame is achieved through infamy and where survival is the only form of success. It forces us to ask a brutal question. How many O-Blocks are we willing to tolerate in the heart of our cities? How many zones of exception, where the social contract is null and void, do we accept as the price for normality elsewhere? The story of O-Block is not the story of a gang war. It is the story of a silent pact that we have all witnessed, a pact of neglect whose consequences are written in the blood of its streets. If this journey into one of America's most infamous war zones impacted you, do us a favor and hit the like button. It helps us continue investigating and telling these hard stories. Subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell, because this is just the beginning. We're going deeper into the hidden worlds of urban violence, and you don't want to miss what's coming. Stay aware. See you in the next video.